Chapter 670. Zhong Muling had already stood up and was looking down with a cold expression. Will he really not die? Ingot said sarcastically, even if this brat comes, it's hard to say, right? Zhong Muling didn't feel like talking to him. He lifted his sleeve, revealing a simple and thick square seal with a hint of threat. Ingot immediately shut his mouth. It wasn't that he couldn't beat this guy, but it was getting harder and harder to fight, which made him very sad. The two people down there were still struggling. The golden lightning was already on the verge of collapse. Even with the support of the vermilion bird's flames, it was barely able to keep itself from falling. They had been fighting for too long. Not to mention their spiritual auras, their spirits were also exhausted. Tienga. In the lightning and flames, Tienga vaguely heard Xianxia's voice. Do you still remember the first time we met? I remember. Her eyes were already blurred, but the chaotic heavenly box still appeared and disappeared unpredictably, relying on divine sense to attack. What did I look like at that time? At that time, you pretended to be a 9th-layer aura refining disciple from a rundown cultivation clan and participated in the Immortal's assembly on Mount Yunwu. You didn't even use talismans and defeated several 10th-layer cultivators. So you've seen me before? Yes. Tienga seemed to see the young man in a simple blue robe from more than 200 years ago. They clearly had the same appearance, but strangely, he looked ordinary. At the Immortal's assembly, second uncle told me that you were very skilled in using spiritual aura. If it wasn't because you had a senior to guide you, you had a firm will and would definitely have great achievements in the future. Heh. He chuckled. Second uncle has good eyes. Tienga also chuckled. I really couldn't like you at that time. You didn't look arrogant, but you always had a wooden face. Whenever junior martial brother Su came to talk to you, you would always say N to dismiss him. You would be with us, but you wouldn't let us get close to you. Even when I thanked you, you couldn't wait to drive me away. At that time, she said with a sigh, I never would have thought you'd become such an important person to me. I just thought, as it turns out, this is that girl who doesn't know what's good for her. She didn't want to be an elite disciple of Xianxia school and ran to be a common disciple of a small cultivation group like this. She even wanted to go to the Immortal's assembly and fight to the death. Tienga couldn't help but laugh. She then asked, if second uncle and I went back to Xianxia school at that time, how would you arrange things for me? He pretended to ponder and said, most likely, he'll accept you as his disciple and throw you to senior martial brother Xianing. Tienga let out an then she smiled at him. In that case, I actually missed a master. What a pity. No, it's not a pity at all. The smile on Xianxia's face carried even more of a sigh. At that time, there was only the great Dao in my heart. If I had taken you as my disciple, I wouldn't have kept you on my mind all the time, and I wouldn't have become your senior martial brother Qin. I also wouldn't have been teased by the 2 deification realm seniors, and I definitely wouldn't have developed a mental barrier because of you. If everything hadn't started, we wouldn't be where we are today. He wasn't a pedophile. If he had met her in the beginning when she was still a little girl, he would have put her in the position of a junior and wouldn't have had any romantic thoughts. If we missed each other like that, the two of us in that world might never realize it and wouldn't know what regret it was. But today, I'm still glad that this series of freak accidents allowed us to have each other. Tienga didn't say anything for a long time. The corners of her eyes were slightly wet, but she still had a smile on her face. I never knew you could talk so well. You made me feel like it wasn't enough, that no matter how much I had, it wouldn't be enough. She straightened her back and her gaze became fierce. We have to live. That way we'll have a future, a very, very long future. She smiled. He suddenly bent down and kissed her. But, live together. The golden lightning dimmed, but they still had the heaven and earth fan in their hands, the chaotic heavenly transformation box waiting for an opportunity to attack, the 3 yang real fire sword, the yang spiritual bead, and the vermilion bird bow. They were far from being resigned to their fates. The two people's sudden desire to live made Bai Ling bite her handkerchief bitterly. Their momentum had weakened, so why did they suddenly become so spirited? While she was thinking about this, she saw that in the golden lightning and flames, the male human cultivator took out a simple and unadorned longbow from somewhere. He slowly pulled the bowstring, and an arrow made of flames slowly took shape on the bow. Bai Ling was dumbfounded because of the powerful aura and the familiar shape. When that human cultivator aimed at her, she finally shouted as if she was scared out of her wits, "Vermilion bird bow! Quickly retreat!" The vermilion bird bow. It was actually the vermilion bird bow, Ice Palace's cornerstone treasure. She grew up in Ice Palace, so she knew this legendary cornerstone treasure very well. The disciples of Ice Palace who practiced the ice and fire arts and held the vermilion bird bow were always the best among cultivators in the same realm. Some of them could even fight those in a higher realm than them. Unfortunately, it was too late. The vermilion bird bow ignited the vermilion bird's flames and drew a long arc in the air. With a clear cry, the vermilion bird appeared. Everything that stood in my way would be scorched. The beast cultivators who couldn't retreat in time were penetrated by the vermilion bird's flames. Even their primordial spirits couldn't escape before they lost their lives and fell from the sky. Taking advantage of the chaos, a beautiful ice crystal appeared in the midst of the demon cultivators. With a muffled explosion, that wondrous aura spread out in a large area, melting everything and melting everything. After being attacked by the vermilion bird's flames, many of the beast cultivators didn't even have time to use their defensive spiritual chi before the chaotic heaven transformation box took advantage of their weakness and attacked them. After 2 waves of attacks, only half of the beast cultivators were still standing safely outside of the attack range. Bai Ling was furious. If she had known that this human had the vermilion bird bow, she would never have let him have the chance to use it. However, it was too late now. In just a few seconds, they had lost 7 or 8 beast cultivators. The vermilion bird bow is too powerful. I don't believe you can use it a second time. Bai Ling struggled to stand up and planned to fight even though she was injured. But right at this moment, not far away, a rank 8 demon cultivator rushed over and cried out, Elder Bai, Shumi Hai is charging over." Bai Ling felt dizzy. She glared at the 2 of them angrily, but in the end, she just gritted her teeth and ordered, "Go!" The beast cultivators left very quickly. In just a while, they all retreated. After a while, Jing Xingji and the others arrived. After a hard battle, everyone was in a mess. Almost everyone was injured. Yi Fun and Lord Daoist Lingxi's injuries were slightly heavier. It could be seen that the intensity of the battle just now was no less than theirs. Senior Martial Brother Shoujing, Junior Martial Sister Qingwei. Seeing that they were still alive, Lord Daoist Lingxi was extremely excited. Just now, he almost thought it was too late. If the 3 of them left the mountain and none of them returned, he didn't know how sad his senior martial brothers and sisters would be, especially senior martial brother Jinghe. He seemed to be heartless, but in fact he loved his disciples the most. Everyone was very happy to see each other again. It was good that they could survive. After putting the spiritual beasts into her spiritual beast bracelet, Mo Tiange said, "It's not safe here. Follow me into the cracked space first." Everyone also knew that the beast cultivators retreated because a more powerful enemy was approaching. They'd better retreat to a safe place to avoid getting involved again. After summoning her spiritual bead and silently reciting the incantation, the group of people disappeared in midair and entered the virtual sky world. There really is a virtual sky world. Above the white cloud, Ingot took out a wine pot and a glass out of nowhere. He poured himself a drink and enjoyed it very much. His tone didn't contain any surprise, as if he already knew about this. Seeing that they were out of danger, Zhong Muling also smiled. "This girl is really like me." Ingot cast him a sidelong glance. "What? Are you proud? You're proud of having descendants. You can be jealous." Zhong Muling was unmoved. "I don't think you can understand this kind of feeling." Ingot was unhappy. Unfortunately, he really couldn't refute him. After a while, he couldn't help but turn his head and ask, "How long do we have to wait here?" Zhong Muling leisurely picked up another wine glass and said, "Wait until they find the answer." Ingot glared at him. Are you sure those juniors will tell you? Why not? Zhong Muling raised his eyebrows. The two of them stared at each other for a while. In the end, Ingot gave up. He stretched his arms and lazily leaned against the cloud chair. He took out several immortal fruits out of nowhere and ate them while saying, "Okay, let's finish early. The seal on the wine brewed by that old guy Fu Yao should be open now. Let's go to his place and drink." "You're only thinking about this." Zhong Muling snorted softly, but his tone was very gentle. Inside the virtual sky world, the group of people was familiar with it. As she released the spiritual beasts, she said, "We'll go out after they finish fighting." Then she gave some medicinal pills to Xiaofeng and asked her to heal Xiaofan. Lord Daoist Lingxi, the only one who hadn't seen them before, was stunned. He kind of guessed where their amazing medicinal pills came from, but there seemed to be no medicinal fields here. "Junior Marshal Brother Lingxi." She gestured for him to sit down and said gently, "This is a space crack. It's very safe here. You can rest assured." Lord Daoist Lingxi nodded and said with a smile, "I've only heard that there are some space cracks in this world that can be used to enter and exit, but they're very few. I didn't expect you to have one." She smiled. He didn't deny that the virtual sky world wasn't his. It didn't matter. "Junior Marshal Brother, just heal here. We'll go out when things are done." "Yes, Senior Marshal Brother." Everyone rested and healed while Emotienga kept an eye on the situation outside. Before long, the Sea Beast army from returning Ruin Sea and Shumi Sea fought. Tens of thousands of sea beasts crowded together. Because many beast cultivators were killed or injured, returning Ruin Sea soon fell into a disadvantage. In addition to Whitey, Old Hay and the green demonic beast were also among them. Ancient beast cultivators were indeed extraordinary. After coming out of the Immortal Palace in returning Ruin Sea, they all safely passed their heavenly tribulations and advanced a level with the help of the heavenly tribulations. Whitey and Old Hay were in the 10th rank, and the green demonic beast was in the 9th rank. Unfortunately, Whitey was seriously injured because of Emotienga, so Old Hay and the green demonic beast couldn't fight alone. The number of beast cultivators in Shumi Sea was no less than theirs, and their strength was well preserved. The battle lasted for 3 days. Chapter 671. When the shell in her bosom vibrated again, Emotienga stopped to adjust her breath. "We can go out now." She nodded, then called everyone to leave the virtual sky world together. After 3 days of rest, everyone had recovered. After all, the spiritual beasts weren't strong. After going through this bitter battle, they were more or less injured, so Emotienga didn't take them with her. Dao Lord Lingxi consumed the 9 revolutions Yang return elixir and temporarily controlled his injuries. Not long after they left the virtual sky world, they saw several flight lights flying towards them. When they arrived in front of them, the conveyance light dissipated, revealing 3 figures: Xian Miao in a blue palace dress, Xian Yu in black, and Enai Qi who looked honest but was actually cunning. "Fellow Daoist Mo, fellow Daoist Qin, long time no see." Xian Miao smiled at the two of them. "Long time no see. The third princess looks even more elegant than before." Emotienga smiled back, then nodded towards Xian Yu and Enai Qi. "Second prince, fellow Daoist Enai." Xian Yu and Enai Qi only faintly returned the greeting and didn't overstep Xian Miao in the slightest. This made Emotienga feel that Xian Miao's position as the monarch's successor had probably been stabilized. Both sides introduced themselves to each other and greeted each other. "Fellow Daoists, I already know why you've come. I'll tell you the truth. The Qilin's sacrificial temple is in our hands. It is for this reason that the Shumi Sea and the returning Ruins Sea have fought for so many years. Otherwise, we would have never left the Shumi Sea after listening to Great Ancestor's warning." Third princess. Since Xian Miao was so frank, Emotienga also spoke with sincerity. "We indeed came for the Qilin's sacrificial temple, but unlike what fellow Daoist Bailing thought, we didn't come to snatch the Qilin's relic. Other people might not understand this reason, but Third Princess is very clear about it. We've always kept in mind what Senior Hooper entrusted to us. We've already found the Azure Dragon, White Tiger, Vermilion Bird, and black tortoise temples. Now, there's only the Qilin left. Since the Qilin sacrificial temple is already in third princess's hands, I hope third princess will allow us to enter together. Xianmiao smiled and nodded. Fellow Daoist, don't worry. We don't dare to forget the words of the divine monarch and great ancestor. Fellow Daoist, feel free to enter the Qilin sacrificial temple. We won't stop you. Upon seeing the confusion on her face, Mo Tiange said, Third princess, if you have something to say, please speak frankly. Xianmiao said, We did find the Qilin sacrificial temple, but the entrance seems to be blocked. We haven't been able to enter, so we can't say whether we can enter or not. Mo Tiange was stunned. This matter couldn't be explained clearly, so Xianmiao straightforwardly said, Fellow Daoists, please follow me. You'll understand once you take a look. Then, Xianmiao turned around and brought Xianyu and Denai Qi down to the sea. Junior Marshal Sister Qingwei, can they be trusted? Dao Lord Rhinoceros was somewhat hesitant. Judging from their conversation just now, they seemed to be very familiar with each other and their words were filled with trust. This left Dao Lord Rhinoceros in disbelief. Over the past few days, he had witnessed the unconditional trust between their friends. It was already rare to have such a friend, let alone a group of them. Now, they even had a demonic cultivator? Qin, she said, Junior Marshal Brother Lingxi, there's a karma between us and these fellow Daoists, so in this matter, they're trustworthy. With this in mind, Lord Dao Lord Lingxi immediately recalled the words, Senior Amber, and Divine Lord and Great Ancestor, that Mo Tiange and Xianmiao mentioned just now, so she didn't say anything more. Everyone followed behind Xianmiao and dived into the sea. Xianmiao and the others were demonic cultivators in the sea. Once they entered the sea, they were like fish in water. She led them forward quickly and soon reached the bottom of a small island. Facing a stone wall, Xianmiao raised her hand and pointed at it. The stone wall shook and moved away without a sound. Xianmiao gestured for them to enter, then led Xianyu and Denai Qi inside. Mo Tiange and Qin Shi followed without hesitation. Jing Xingji and the others followed closely behind them. Everyone entered and the stone wall closed. This was an underwater cave. The dark space was brightly and beautifully illuminated by the luminous pearls. The strange thing was that there was no seawater inside the cave. It was like dry land. Greetings to the third princess, the second prince, elder and all the honored guests. Several 8th-rank demonic cultivators guarding the cave stepped forward and saluted them upon seeing them. Xianmiao nodded slightly and the others saluted back. Fellow Daoists, it's here. Xianmiao pointed at a towering door. This door was made of bluestone and was carved from boulders. It was towering, dignified, and imposing. The 2 stone doors were carved with lifelike qilins, emitting a majestic aura. Qilin's aura? Mo Tiange said softly. Since there was such a pure Qilin's aura, this was definitely the Qilin sacrificial temple. It was funny. Ever since she discovered the Azure Dragon sacrificial temple when she was in the foundation building realm, she had never entered the 4 spirits sacrificial temple from the main entrance. The Azure Dragon sacrificial temple was another entrance. The vermilion bird was built into an underground palace by the Ice Palace. The white tiger was embedded in the West Mountain Range. The black tortoise was also from another entrance. Until the Qilin sacrificial temple, she finally saw the main entrance. This is a really exciting thing. We've thought of all kinds of methods, but we couldn't open it, Xianmiao said. But fellow Daoists don't need to worry. It's only been a few days. We can slowly think of a way. Fellow Daoist, you're right. Mo Tiange was about to say something when the mighty Qilin's aura suddenly soared into the sky. It was as if something had rushed out of the sacrificial temple. Everyone was shocked. Such a strong Qilin's aura. What happened? Hee. A chuckle rang in everyone's ears. The voice seemed far but was actually close. It was as if it was right next to their ears. After waiting for so many years, someone finally came? A man's voice, which was neither loud nor deep, sounded leisurely and leisurely. Xianmiao's expression changed. She shouted, "Who are you? Come out quickly. Don't play tricks on us." Little girl, don't be so hot-tempered, the man said. Even your great-great-great-grandfather wouldn't talk to me like this. Xianxia was stunned. For a moment, she couldn't understand the meaning of his words. Alas, young people nowadays, don't they know how to respect their elders? The man seemed to be talking to himself. His voice was obviously very young, but his tone was arrogant. May I ask which senior you are? She raised his voice and asked, Senior, since you've waited for so many years, you probably aren't playing tricks on us, right? The voice paused for a moment and said with a hint of a smile, Young people are indeed impatient. Oh, all right, I'll let you in. As soon as the voice finished speaking, the Qilin door seemed to be touched by something and slowly opened. The dozen or so people present looked at each other, but no one dared to step in. What, don't you have the guts? The voice teased. Xianxia clenched her teeth and took the lead to walk out. Meow meow. Xianyu was startled and called her. Xianxia raised her head and said, This is the Qilin sacrificial temple. We're the descendants of Qilin. Don't tell me we don't dare to go in? After she said that, she flapped her clothes and steadily walked in. Xianyu was stunned and sighed in disappointment. He finally knew why he was inferior to his third sister. Let's go, Xianxia said. With this senior strength, he doesn't need to do anything unnecessary to deal with us. He also walked in. A group of more than 10 cultivators silently walked into the Qilin sacrificial temple. The wide stone path was filled with the vigorous breath of Qilin, which made Tiange deeply feel that although they were all divine beasts, the 5 spirits had extremely powerful strength. The Qilin's breath she obtained from the amber couldn't move at all under this kind of spiritual aura. The end of the stone path suddenly opened, and the Qilin main hall was in front of everyone. As soon as they approached, the door of the hall slowly opened, and a voice came from close at hand. Welcome, little friends. As soon as they entered the Qilin main hall, everyone was dumbfounded. The main hall was no different from the other worship temples. The only difference was that the statue of a majestic Qilin was in the position of the statue. The strange thing was that the side of the statue seemed to be connected to another space. There were no huge stone walls, but instead, there were green mountains, clear water, and gurgling water. There was a chess table next to the pool, and on top of it was a strange chess set with colorful patterns. Tiange recognized at a glance that it was a formation diagram. Next to the chess table, a person was sitting on his knees with a gorgeous feathered spiritual bird in his hand. He was looking at them with a leisurely smile. This person looked young, no more than 30 years old. His eyebrows were very plain and couldn't be considered handsome, but his whole body was full of a kind of natural and unrestrained temperament. With just a glance, people would feel that he was extraordinary. But the most frightening thing was the breath on his body. It was like a deep abyss and calm sea, rising but not releasing. Senior is... Tiange couldn't breathe. A deification cultivator? The person smiled and said leisurely, You're the junior Qi Ling? I have his breath on you. Qi Ling was Zhong Muling's Daoist name. Tiange took a deep breath then bowed to greet him. Junior Tiange greets Senior. Upon hearing what she said, the others also came to their senses and saluted one after another. Ling Yunhe, Lord Daoist Lingxi, and the others were especially excited. This was their first time seeing a legendary deification cultivator. Xianyue, Xuanmiao, and the others also saluted respectfully. First, it was because their respect for deification cultivators had nothing to do with the Zhong clan. Second, it was because this deification cultivator seemed to know their ancestor. No need to be so polite. The person smiled and stroked the bird next to his hand. After everyone stood up, Tiange asked respectfully, May I know Senior's name and why you're in the Qilin sacrificial temple? The person let go of the bird in his hand, letting it fly away before answering, My name is Han Quan. I'm currently on duty in the Qilin sacrificial temple. This answer stunned Tiange. On duty? Han Quan nodded with a smile. Correct. Since 10,000 years ago, there have been deification cultivators guarding the Qilin sacrificial temple. They take turns to be on duty every 1,000 years. Ah, Nie Wushang whispered. So, All the deification cultivators know what we've done? Her sharp reaction drew Han Quan's admiring gaze. You're not wrong to say that. His words shocked them. They all know? Does that mean people have already been to the other four spirits' sacrificial temples? If that's the case, why did they still get the divine beast's inheritance? Was it necessary for them to search for the truth? Xuanmiao was stunned for a long time. All of a sudden, she shouted excitedly, that being the case, why didn't you go to my divine Lord Great Ancestor? You're deification cultivators, so you're much stronger than us. Why didn't you lend him a helping hand? Senior, you said you knew one of my ancestors, right? Could it be that he also didn't want to ask his own ancestor for help? Chapter 672. After Xianmiao questioned him, Han Quan looked at her deeply and said, Little girl, whether you believe it or not, we didn't know about this before. If you hadn't found that, Senior, we wouldn't have known there were divine beasts left from the distant past era in this world. Han Quan's answer stunned Xianmiao. You even know about the sacrificial temple. How could you not know? Han Quan waved his hand. You're from the Qilin clan, so I'll let your ancestor explain these things to you. Xianmiao knew there were ancestors in her clan who broke through to the 10th rank, but that was only a family legend and had no proof. Moreover, for some reason after the breakthrough, these ancestors no longer stayed in the clan and disappeared from the world. Now, she had a chance to see them. Could it be that these ancestors had always been there, but they just didn't want to meet them? Just what kind of secret were these soul formation cultivators hiding by doing this? Han Quan didn't say anything more. A spiritual light gathered between his fingers, and he casually pointed to the side. A door emitting mist appeared. Go in. You'll be able to see your ancestor once you go in. Huh. This kind of magical spell only existed in legends. Xianmiao regained her composure after a while and respectfully saluted Han Quan. Senior, please forgive me if I offended you just now. Junior can't thank Senior enough for your kindness. Han Quan waved his hand carelessly. Go in. Xianmiao led the beast cultivators to salute him again, then walked towards the door. The beast cultivators entered the door and disappeared. Han Quan waved his hand gently, and the door also disappeared. It looked like a transporting formation, but it was much more casual. The divine power of deification cultivators was too magical. And you too. Han Quan's gaze fell on Xianxia and Xianxia. He smiled faintly. You two are old friends with the other two, so, Senior, do you also want to send us away? Xianxia asked. Han Quan nodded. Of course. Xianxia turned to look at him. What about them? Han Quan said, Don't worry. Deification cultivators don't kill people. Since they're fated to meet me, it must be a fated chance. Xianxia looked happy and sincerely thanked him. Thank you, Senior. Han Quan nodded and pointed again, forming a teleportation door. Xianxia and Xianxia stood up, bid farewell to the others and stepped through the door. The white light around them gathered and dispersed. In the blink of an eye, Xianxia and Xianxia were already standing on the white clouds. Yo, you're out? You're pretty fast. A slightly frivolous voice sounded in his ear. The two of them turned around and saw a young man sitting across from each other on the white cloud. The one who spoke was naturally Yuan Bao. He leaned against the cloud chair in a very rude manner and looked at Xianxia with a grin. Brat, how does it feel to be a human furnace? Xianxia was stunned. He recalled how he was deceived by Xianxia back then. He thought he really wanted to cultivate Xianxia into Xianxia's human furnace, and in the end, he struggled with this matter for several years. His face was slightly red and his voice was stiff. Thank you for your kindness, Senior. You don't have to worry about this kind of thing. Seeing that Yuan Bao still wanted to tease him, Zhong Muling cleared his throat and gave him a warning look. Ingot raised his hand in surrender. Xianxia brushed her robes and knelt down. Tiange greets Great Ancestor. After we parted that year, I finally see Great Ancestor again. I wonder if Great Ancestor has been well for more than 200 years? Zhong Muling nodded lightly. His gaze was gratified, and a faint smile appeared on his face. I'm very good. You're also not bad. The fated chance I gave you back then wasn't in vain for your achievements today. Xianxia said, I haven't advanced to the deification realm yet, so I don't deserve great ancestors' praise. Zhong Muling's smile deepened. Deification? Deification is 100 times more difficult than nascent soul. It's good that you have this ambition, but you mustn't be impatient. When I advanced to the deification realm, I was already more than 1,000 years old. Even someone as talented as Yuan couldn't advance to the deification realm within 1,000 years. You still have a long way to go. Yes, I'll sincerely follow great ancestors' teachings. Zhong Muling shifted his gaze. Xianxia also kowtowed. Greetings, senior. Seeing that he was a bit reserved, Zhong Muling smiled. No need to be so polite. Just call me great ancestor like Tiange does. Zhong Muling's acknowledgement made Xianxia sigh in relief. Yes, great ancestor. Sit down. Zhong Muling gently waved his hand. 2 cloud chairs floated beside the table. After bowing to the 2 of them again, the 2 of them finally stood up and sat down on the cloud chairs. You being able to reach this point is somewhat beyond my expectations, Zhong Muling said. Azure Dragon, White Tiger, Vermilion Bird, Black Tortoise, and Qilin. Originally, we old guys didn't think anyone would have such a fated chance to gather the 5 spirits. I didn't expect you to succeed. Xianxia was full of questions when she saw Han Quan. Even deification cultivators knew about the 5 spirits' sacrificial temples. Could it be that all of this was planned by them? Great ancestor, do you actually know about these sacrificial temples? Zhong Muling nodded. I do. Seeing that the doubts on her face deepened, he waved his hand. It's not what you think. We didn't deliberately plan anything. Since she really couldn't guess what was going on, Xianxia said, Great ancestor, please explain. Zhong Muling heaved a long sigh and lightly tapped the table with his fingers. After a long time, he finally said, the existence of the 5 spirits' sacrificial temples is actually related to an ancient gambling game. It's related to the truth of this world's existence and even the existence of God. I have to tell you that if you know about this, your beliefs might suffer an unprecedented impact. You might lose the meaning of cultivating and even doubt your own existence. His expression was solemn, and his words were frightening. This couldn't help but make Xianxia and Xianxia feel somewhat uneasy. They looked at each other and clasped their hands. They felt that no matter what it was, they had the courage to face it. Xianxia nodded firmly. Great ancestor, whether we know about it or not, this matter already exists. Even if we don't know about it, what can we do? Great ancestor, please speak frankly. All right. Zhong Muling showed a faint smile. He was very satisfied with them. He thought for a while, then slowly began to narrate his story. This story has to start from God. In your hearts, what kind of existence are God? He only paused for a moment. Without waiting for them to answer, he continued, in people's eyes, God is the creator and ruler of the world. They are benevolent, fair, powerful, and omnipotent. However, they obviously overlooked one thing. As creators, they might be fair, but they definitely can't be benevolent. His last sentence was resolute and decisive. The world is heartless, treating all living things as straw dogs. The Daoist scriptures say that all living things in the world are the same to God. He created all living things and let them grow, treating them the same. In this kind of situation, how could he be benevolent? Cattle and sheep eat grass. How could they be benevolent to grass? Lions and tigers eat sheep. How could they be benevolent to sheep? The world doesn't need benevolence, and the God who created the world also isn't benevolent. For them, the most important thing is to establish rules and act naturally. Xianxia was silent for a long time before she slowly nodded. Therefore, for God, they don't care about the destruction of the world. If there's life, there's death. If there's creation, there's destruction. Zhong Muling said in an almost indifferent tone, they create the world and set the rules. Once they discover that the world isn't to their liking, it's not a pity to destroy it. Xianxia suddenly remembered what her master, Lord Daoist Jinghe, said to her many years ago. It was so similar to what Zhong Muling said. For a moment she actually trembled a little. When the world is established, once it's not to their liking, it'll be destroyed and rebuilt. We are all God's puppets, yes. That's exactly it. Zhong Yuling's gaze gradually became fierce. We're all God's puppets. They create us, watch us live, cultivate, and even change the world. But as long as they're dissatisfied, they can erase us. Zhong Yuling closed his eyes and said with a calm tone, "Our world is also like this. The end of the distant past era was destruction and reconstruction. The separation of immortals and devils, and the separation of demons and spirits, all of these were God slowly adjusting the rules. Therefore, the distant past era is different from the Middle Ages era, and the present era is also different from the Middle Ages era. Not only are the spiritual aura and resources different, but even the beliefs of cultivators are also different. Maybe you don't know, but our world isn't the only human world created by God. They were able to create a human world, so naturally, they could create thousands of them. In the distant past era, this world was already abandoned once, but there was a God who fought for a slim chance of survival for us." Zhong Yuling suddenly changed the topic. "You've been to the fallen god abyss, right?" Mo Tiange nodded. She didn't understand what this had to do with it. The fallen god abyss is actually a trace left behind by the battle between two gods. "Ah!" Mo Tiange cried out in alarm. At first, they thought it was a trace left behind by the battle between immortals, but it turned out it was actually a trace left behind by the battle between gods. It was no wonder there was primal chaos aura. It was also no wonder she said that place was too clean. Presumably, a deification cultivator had already been there. Two heavenly deities fought each other. One heavenly deity stopped the other from destroying the supreme ancient immortal realms. Hence, our world is able to exist. Mo Tiange asked hesitantly, "Why did the two gods fight each other?" "Gods are also different," Zhong Yuling said. "They have different personalities and different preferences. One god thought this world should be destroyed, while the other thought it could exist. In the end, the latter one. Maybe it was out of pity, or maybe it was out of love, but he stopped the destruction of the distant past era and made a bet with the other god." Mo Tiange's heart skipped a beat. She recalled how Hupa said this was a gamble, an unprecedented gamble. If they won, the human world would have a chance of survival. What was it? The gamble was whether living beings could save themselves. If they could, they would never take the initiative to destroy this world. Zhong Yuling said this calmly. His tone didn't change in the slightest. In order to leave behind a chance of survival and win the gamble, that God used human hands to build the five spirits' sacrificial temple. He sealed this matter in the sacrificial temple, leaving the breath of the five spirits in the sacrificial temple as well as the devil cultivation method. He wanted to see if anyone could find out the truth. If someone found it, whether they were Daoists, Confucians, Buddhists, or devils, they would gain something. Zhong Yuling stared at them and said, "Therefore, obtaining the inheritance of the five spirits' sacrificial temple or the primordial devil cultivation technique is the great way to heaven." This seemed to be good news, but Zhong Yuling and Yuan Bao didn't have any smiles on their faces. This made them feel that the aftermath wasn't as good as they thought. She asked, "But since the deification seniors knew about the existence of the five spirits' sacrificial temple, how could it still be our turn? Why are the others still intact except for the Qilin sacrificial temple?" Zhong Yuling smiled and shook his head. His smile was bleak. "Because it was too late. We discovered it too late. This gamble ended a long time ago. If we were cultivators from the distant past era, this would indeed be the great way to heaven. But we were born in this world. The distant past era was destroyed, and the great way to heaven was severed." Chapter 673. Yuan Bao, who had been silent the whole time, said softly, 100,000 years ago, there was a cultivator in Yunzhong called Fu Yaozi. He had been searching for the truth of this world. Through various clues, he found many records about the destruction of the distant past era. After he advanced to the deification realm, he found the notes of an ancient Mahayana cultivator in a divine palace. Only then did he know what the destruction of the distant past era was. Although the distant past era was destroyed, it was a normal reconstruction. The destruction of the distant past era was because the gods abandoned this world. Abandoned? Emotienga was a bit confused. Yuan Bao nodded lightly. Yes, abandoned. At that time, they wanted to completely destroy this world, but the result was that they didn't completely destroy this world. This world flourished again. The destructive power last time was too strong and damaged its origin, so the spiritual aura in our world became thin and spiritual objects were rare. Emotienga took a deep breath. She never thought she would hear such a truth. This is an abandoned world, Zhong Muling said coldly. No matter how we cultivate, we can't ascend. The deification realm is our final destination. That's why you can still see the 5-spirit sacrificial temple and obtain the 5-spirit inheritance. For us deification cultivators, these things are meaningless. It's better to leave them for later generations to see if there's a person destined by heaven who can obtain the inheritance and change this fate. But Emotienga felt she couldn't breathe. Since it's already been abandoned by the gods, how can there be a person destined by heaven? Zhong Muling and Yuan Bao didn't answer. This was a question they couldn't answer. Destiny. For an abandoned world, where was the destiny? Although they knew it was ridiculous, they still hoped there was such a destiny in their hearts. Even if that's the case, have you tried it? Can the 5-spirit inheritance and the primordial devil great technique really not reach the heavens? Emotienga didn't give up. Yuan Bao answered, Why do you think we chose to be on duty at the Qilin sacrificial temple? Because the Qilin sacrificial temple was discovered first. Both the Qilin and the primordial devil great technique were inherited by someone else. They were the ones who discovered this. Zhong Muling said, You should have heard of these two people. The one who obtained the primordial devil great technique is the #1 devil cultivator in Yunzhong, Demon Venerable Sky. The one who obtained the Qilin's inheritance is Fu Yaozi. He stared at Emotienga and said, He's that master of yours. Ah! Emotienga exclaimed. From what Ingot said just now, she already knew Fu Yaozi was a deification cultivator, but she didn't expect Zhong Muling would also know about this. Zhong Muling knew what she was thinking, so he said, Don't be suspicious. We weren't spying on you. It's just that you entered the Azure Dragon sacrificial temple and later, by chance, you entered the Vermilion Bird sacrificial temple, so we paid special attention to you. Soul formation cultivators paid special attention to it. Naturally, their entire life experiences could not be hidden. Emotienga didn't dwell on this matter. She said, Even if I entered 2 sacrificial temples at the same time, so what? I'm sure all of your soul formation seniors have already entered. How could the mandate of heaven be so simple? Zhong Muling smiled bitterly. How could we not know this? It's just that I'm unwilling. I'm unwilling to be abandoned in this world where I can't ascend. Back then, Fu Yaozi and Demon Venerable Skylight searched every corner of this world and found the Qilin sacrificial temple. Each of them obtained one of the fated chances. Fu Yaozi obtained the Qilin's inheritance while Demon Venerable Skylight obtained the primordial devil steel. They soon discovered that these two things contained formidable power. If they cultivated them properly, they would surpass all the cultivation techniques in this world. This discovery was soon known by all the deification cultivators. After they advanced into the deification realm, they discovered that it was difficult for their cultivation levels to make any progress. It was almost impossible for them to advance again. Because of this, they began to search for clues about the 5 spirits. You should know that deification cultivators are very rare. Only 1 or 2 appear on each continent every several thousand years. Especially during their era, when the world flourished again, it had only been several tens of thousands of years. At that time, there were no more than 10 deification cultivators in the world. The competition wasn't too fierce. Moreover, even if they obtained the divine beast's inheritance and the great primordial devil technique, their path to heaven was still boundless. Therefore, they simply formed an alliance and agreed to find 5 sacrificial temples before dividing the treasures. At this point, Zhong Muling stopped and heaved a sigh. There was no need to say anything else. Xianxia and Qin, she already understood that the alliance of deification cultivators naturally went smoothly. Unfortunately, after they found it, they immediately discovered that it was meaningless to them. Therefore, aside from the Qilin, the 5 spirits were still perfectly preserved. For several tens of thousands of years, people continuously advanced to the deification realm and people continuously learned the truth, but nothing could change. We couldn't contact the people outside. It seemed like we couldn't break through that invisible barrier in the deification realm. But in this world, we simply couldn't advance any further. The cycle kept repeating itself and became an unsolvable problem. Then, will our world still be destroyed? Xianxia asked after a long time. I don't know, Zhong Muling answered faintly. Maybe, maybe not. Xianxia kind of wanted to ask. If the world was destroyed, would they get the attention of God again and see the path to heaven? But she didn't ask again because she didn't need to and couldn't get an answer. The 4 of them didn't speak again. Yuan Bao sipped his wine intermittently. Zhong Muling sat in silence. Xianxia and Qin, she looked at each other without saying anything. However, their tightly clasped hands were extremely cold. It turned out their long-term pursuit, the pursuit of millions of cultivators in the world, was just a dream, an unreachable dream? Do you still want to advance to the deification realm? After a long time, Zhong Muling asked, or do you still want to cultivate? Seeing that they couldn't answer, Zhong Muling didn't say much. He said, I'll take you back. When you advance to the deification realm, we'll probably see each other again. You don't need to pay attention to the Qilin's sacrificial temple anymore. It's just a boring game played by us old guys to see if anyone could really find it. Since you've found it, it'll be abandoned. Zhong Muling raised his hand and was about to create a space transporting gate when he heard Xianxia shouting, Great Ancestor, wait. He stopped for a moment and asked, Do you have anything else to say? Xianxia asked, There's still something I don't understand. Why did the 5 spirits' sacrificial temple's position only happen after the world changed and the continent shifted? Why did the continent shift happen? Is it related to me? Upon hearing her question, Zhong Muling's face stiffened. He showed a strange expression and finally said, You just want to ask these questions? This wasn't the main point, okay? Xianxia was a bit embarrassed and said, Great Ancestor, what you said is indeed shocking, but it can't be changed. These things have puzzled me for a long time, and I've never had anyone to ask. All right. Zhong Muling showed a helpless expression. In fact, this world originally looked like this. It's just that the destruction of the distant past era was too thorough, so it became like this. As for why it changed back, we can't answer this question in detail. We can only say that it's related to you. You activated the modified mysterious void cloud formation in the Vermilion Bird Sacrificial Temple, which affected the balance of space and caused the space to collapse. The 5 spirits' sacrificial temple is inextricably linked to this world, so it eventually caused the continent to shift and returned to its original state. I see. Xianxia nodded as if she understood something. She then asked, Great Ancestor, may I ask how long does a deification cultivator have? Why can a cultivator from 100,000 years ago survive until now? Zhong Muling was silent for a while then answered, Since the world has changed, the rules have also changed. In this broken world, deification cultivators are too powerful, so correspondingly, they can't meddle in human affairs. As for their lifespan, even we don't know how long a deification cultivator can live. Maybe they can even live forever. Do you have any other questions? Zhong Muling asked after he explained everything in detail. Xianxia shook her head. I don't have any other questions. I just want to ask Great Ancestor. About that cheap master of yours, right? Yuan Bao, who was standing on the side, interrupted. Xianxia nodded. Just now, I heard Senior Yuan Bao say that my master, Fu Yaozi, is already a deification cultivator? Yes, he's one of the first people in this world to reach the deification realm. Yuan Bao said somewhat sourly. Speaking of which, he and Zhong Muling had lived for several thousand years, but to Fu Yaozi from 100,000 years ago, They were juniors who couldn't be any later. Their seniority was lowered for no reason. Can I see him? Looking at her hopeful eyes, Zhong Muling said, I'll tell him. If he wants to see you, he'll come looking for you. Emotienga showed a happy smile. Thank you, great ancestor. Her expression made Zhong Muling feel a bit sour. You're very respectful to him, but you're not like this to me, great ancestor. Great ancestor. Emotienga wanted to explain, but Zhong Muling waved his hand, indicating that she didn't need to explain. Go back. Although you already know the truth, you're not a deification cultivator after all. If you want to worry about these things, you still have a long way to go. With a point of his finger, a space-transporting gate appeared in front of them. Whether we're still related or not, whether we can meet again or not, depends on your choice. Asterisk 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 after Emotienga and Xianxia's figures disappeared, Zhong Muling and Ingot didn't speak for a long time. They already knew the truth, but they'd been free and unfettered for so long that they somewhat forgot how cruel this truth was to cultivators who pursued the great Tao their whole lives. Aling, did you notice one thing? What? Ingot stood up and sprinkled a cup of wine on the sea from the clouds as if he was holding a memorial for those brave souls who passed away in pursuit of the great Tao. The appearance of this girl changed a lot of things. 2 of the 5 sacrificial temples were destroyed, the world returned to its original position, and we even found a senior Qilin who was imprisoned in this world that we didn't know about. Zhong Muling was silent for a long time before he said, she didn't do all of this alone. Let's say that senior Qilin was the result of the efforts of the Qilin clan in Shumisi. But it's related to her again, isn't it? Ingot said, the person with the mandate of heaven doesn't change the world with their own strength. Instead, they cause the world to change. Zhong Muling was slightly moved. You're saying she's the person with the mandate of heaven? I didn't say that. Ingot looked calm. In any case, this game is over. Maybe the person with the mandate of heaven will really bring us the person with the mandate of heaven, or maybe there's nothing. But it doesn't matter. The days of the deification realm are really boring. Chapter 674. Emotienga looked at Mount Taikong under her feet and sighed. They had only left the mountain for a few days. None of them expected they would find the answer in such a short time. Senior martial brother. She looked at Mount Taikong surrounded by immortal aura and asked, should we tell them the truth? She shook his head. What should we tell them? That this world has been abandoned and there's no way to ascend? Forget it. Our deification seniors haven't told us this secret for tens of thousands of years. Why should we cut off other people's hope? Not everyone could bear the cruelty of the truth. The deification cultivators didn't say it because they had their own concerns. Emotienga thought about it and nodded with a sigh. That's fine. The fact that there's no way to ascend is something deification cultivators should consider. In thousands of years, only 1 or 2 cultivators have to face it. Let them always have hope. While they were talking, a streak of light flew up from Mount Taikong and swept towards them. The person stopped in front of them. The flight light dispersed, revealing an ordinary but smiling face. Martial Uncle Shoujing, Martial Uncle Qingwei, you're back so soon? This person was Wu Feishuang. After she advanced to the core formation realm, her Daoist name was Dingguan. Emotienga used to criticize this Daoist name in her mind. Wu Feishuang's personality was very similar to Lord Daoist Miaoi's. She looked kind but was actually very firm inside. However, Lord Daoist Miaoi gave her a Daoist name of Dingguan. Wasn't she cultivating to become a stone? That being said, Emotienga still sighed when she saw Wu Feishuang's empty left sleeve. She couldn't form a body before forming her nascent soul, but it wasn't difficult to make a temporary fake hand. However, she left her left sleeve empty as if to announce her determination. Things went smoother than I thought, Emotienga said vaguely. Only the Lord Daoists knew the purpose of their trip. The others didn't know, so there was no need to explain it now. As a junior, Wu Feishuang wouldn't ask too many questions. She bowed to them and said, "Martial uncles, please show me your identity tablets." The battle was getting more and more intense. Xianxia School's great mountain protecting formation was always on alert. No matter who they were, they had to show their identity tablets to enter or leave. After checking their identity tablets and confirming there were no mistakes, Wu Feishuang respectfully said, "Martial uncles, welcome back to the mountain. Don't stand on ceremony." Xianxia waved his hand and entered the temporary entrance of the great mountain protecting formation. He then asked casually, "Has junior martial brother Lingxi returned to the mountain?" Wu Feishuang replied, reporting to martial uncle, "This disciple has been on duty recently and has yet to see martial uncle Lingxi." Xianxia nodded. They were teleported to Zhong Muling and Yuan Bao and were sent back in less than half a day. Han Quan once said the others would have a fated chance, and Lord Daoist Lingxi might have been delayed because of this. Just as they were about to descend to Clear Spring Peak, their hearts suddenly trembled at the same time. It was as if an invisible force had appeared out of nowhere. In the next moment, a clap of thunder suddenly sounded in the sky, and the spiritual energy of heaven and earth surged, condensing into numerous tangible spiritual lights. "This is..." Wu Feishuang exclaimed in astonishment. "Who advanced to the nascent soul realm?" Tiange was first startled, then delighted. She turned towards Xianxia and asked, "Who advanced to the nascent soul realm?" After feeling pleasantly surprised, Xianxia looked towards the source of the surging spiritual aura. "Morning Sun Peak, forming my nascent soul," Wu Feishuang murmured. She also looked at Morning Sun Peak with a complicated expression. There was both expectation and worry on her face. Could it be him? The celestial phenomenon of nascent soul formation was becoming more and more obvious. Lord Daoist Xianxia had already come out of his cave. Looking at the surging wind and clouds around him, he laughed heartily. "Ha! Good. Zhifei, you finally didn't disappoint Master's expectations." It was impossible for Lord Daoist Xianxia not to care about seeing Lord Daoist Jinghe's disciples forming their nascent souls one after another. However, nascent soul formation couldn't be forced. His disciples either lacked fated chances or they didn't live up to expectations, so he couldn't do anything about it. At this moment his long-cherished wish finally came true, so he was extremely happy. Once he finished laughing, he was even more delighted to see Tiange and Xianxia returning. "You two came back so soon? Where's Lingxi?" "Senior martial brother Xianxia." The two bowed to greet him. "Junior martial brother Lingxi will probably come back later." Xianxia looked at the celestial phenomenon of nascent soul formation on Morning Sun Peak and asked, "Senior martial brother, has Zhifei formed his nascent soul?" Lord Daoist Xianxia was overjoyed and said in a loud voice, "Zhifei learned his lesson all these years and cast aside his obsession. Now, he's finally severed his past entanglements and reached the nascent soul realm." Xianxia nodded with a smile. "Xianxia School has its 9th Lord Daoist. Congratulations. 9 nascent soul cultivators, 10 wasn't far away." Lord Daoist Xianxia was complacent at the thought that the number of nascent soul cultivators in the sect would reach double digits when he was in charge. He wasn't a cultivator who wholeheartedly cultivated. He'd been in charge of Xianxia School for many years, and the strength of the sect gave him a great sense of satisfaction, especially when the one forming his nascent soul was his disciple. "Qingwei Shoujing, this is all thanks to you. Without you, Xianxia School wouldn't be where it is today." After the excitement, Lord Daoist Xianxia looked solemn and bowed deeply to them. The two hurriedly stepped aside. "Senior martial brother Xianxia, you're too polite. We're also Xianxia School's disciples, so this is what we should do." Lord Daoist Xianxia bowed and said with a smile, "You two came back just in time. Miaoyi and Xianyin are both in closed-door meditation, so it'll be a bit lonely for Zhifei to come out. You two can make up the numbers. Besides, you're all disciples of the same generation, so it's always good to get closer." Tiange and Xianxia looked at each other. They both understood what Lord Daoist Xianxia meant. Bai Yanfei's downfall wasn't unrelated to them. Now that he formed his nascent soul and was on the same level as a Lord Daoist, he should erase everything from the past. The two of them going to greet him was a step forward to show their attitude. This was also Lord Daoist Xianxia's last test for Bai Yanfei. To be honest, Xianxia and Xianxia didn't care about the entanglement between them, so they naturally agreed to Lord Daoist Xianxia's small request. Besides, if someone in the sect formed his nascent soul, they should greet him. When Xianxia returned to the mountain after forming his nascent soul, didn't Lord Daoist Xianxia, who was the head of the sect, also come out to greet him personally? The two of them agreed and followed Lord Daoist Xianxia to Bai Yanfei's Immortal's cave. After taking 2 steps, they heard Wu Feishuang say, "Martial Uncle Xianxia, Martial Uncles, disciple is on duty and can't leave, so I won't go." Lord Daoist Xianxia finally noticed her. His excited expression faded a little, and he said with a bit of guilt, "Feishuang, it's okay to leave for a while." Lord Daoist Xianxia hesitated and didn't finish his words. Even if Xianxia and Xianxia weren't outsiders, it wasn't good to talk about the matter between husband and wife in public. Wu Feishuang said solemnly, "It's precisely because someone is forming his nascent soul that we should be more careful on duty, so Martial Nephew can't stay for long." She paused for a moment then said, "Martial Uncle, please pass on my congratulations to Martial Uncle Zhifei for walking out of his inner demon and setting foot on the Great Tao." She called herself her Daoist name and called Bai Yanfei Martial Uncle Zhifei, so her attitude was very obvious. Lord Daoist Xianxia was silent for a moment then sighed. "Forget it. If I keep meddling, I'll be disrespectful. You can go." Wu Feishuang cupped her hands at the 3 of them then rode her magic weapon and left. Xianxia shook her head and followed Lord Daoist Xianxia to land on Morning Sun Peak. Bai Yanfei's Immortal's cave was right next to Lord Daoist Xianxia's Immortal's cave. The spiritual aura was no less than that of Morning Sun Peak's Master's cave, which showed Lord Daoist Xianxia's preference for him. Xianxia couldn't help but wonder if it was because he was too partial to Bai Yanfei that Bai Yanfei took the wrong path. Bai Yanfei was different from them. She came from an ordinary family and had a rough childhood. Although she was born in a prince's mansion, he was just a branch of the family and was far from being respected. As for Bai Yanfei, he was born the crown prince and became the head's favorite disciple after he entered the sect. He was too used to being spoiled, so he couldn't get up when he was frustrated. In fact, in terms of talent and comprehension, Bai Yanfei wasn't worse than them. Even if he couldn't compare to her spiritual roots of the origin, he was still several times better than Xianxia. He also had generous conditions. A great cultivator in the late stage of the nascent soul realm was meticulously taught, and countless resources were at his disposal. Perhaps he had too much, so he forgot that some things had to be obtained through hard work. No matter how smart or rich a person was, he would only walk a little earlier and a little faster than others. If he always held his head high, he could see a higher goal, but he often couldn't see the road under his feet. In the long run, there would be a day when those people he never paid attention to would sooner or later appear in his line of sight and become existences he could look up to. At that time, he would realize how unsteady his steps were all the way. The feeling of falling from a high place wasn't good, but if he didn't fall, he wouldn't be able to climb back up. Xianxia stood behind Lord Daoist Xianxia and watched as the stone door of the cave opened. A person slowly walked out with a calm gaze and dignified demeanor. She faintly smiled. That arrogant and impetuous junior brother, after being silent for several decades, had finally stood up and firmly solidified the once illusory path. After seeing Bai Yanfei, Xianxia and Xianxia returned to the cave. They hadn't left for long, and the cave was in good condition. The 2 of them sent a message to their master and reprimanded their disciples. After a while, they sent a message to Gujian's sect to ask whether Jing Xingji had returned. Before Gujian's sect replied, Lord Daoist Xianxia came to visit with Lord Daoist Jinghe and Lord Daoist Miaoi. Xianxia was a bit flattered to see how cautious they were. After greeting them, she said, "Master, since you're back, you should have sent someone to inform us. How could you trouble Master to visit us in person?" Lord Daoist Jinghe didn't put on airs as a master today. He waved his hand and said, "Your master came back at the last minute. I still have to go to Kuanzhong City after I'm done, so I don't have time to put on airs. Let's talk quickly." Xianxia was speechless for a moment. Xianxia reacted quickly and directly led them into the cultivation room. There were no chairs in the cultivation room, so the five of them sat on the praying mats. Lord Daoist Xianxia asked first, "I didn't ask about the day Zhifei formed his nascent soul. Shoujing and Qingwei, you came back so soon, and Lingxi didn't go with you. Is there something wrong?" She poured tea for each of the masters one by one, then answered, "Rest assured, senior martial brother Xianxia. Nothing unpleasant happened." "Then you..." Lord Daoist Xianxia still frowned. As the head and senior martial brother, he was also worried about Lord Daoist Lingxi, who hadn't returned yet. Miaoi held the teacup, sniffed it gently, then put it down. She said with a smile, "Senior martial brother, although Shoujing and Qingwei are injured, they look calm. Lingxi is obviously fine. Moreover, they don't look anxious or unhappy at all. It seems we found some answers on this trip." Tiange looked at Lord Daoist Miaoi with admiration and said, "Senior martial sister Miaoi is wise. We've indeed found the answer, but the answer..." She hesitated a bit and heaved a long sigh. "I hope you won't be too disappointed after you know it." Chapter 675. All of this was just a gamble, Tiange said seriously. Under the solemn gazes of the three Lord Daoists, Tiange slowly changed the whole story. First of all, she told the three Lord Daoists everything about this trip, from the battle between the sea beasts in the Shumi Sea and the returning ruins sea to being besieged by dozens of demonic cultivators, to escaping death, and finally to finding the Qilin sacrificial temple. When we arrived at the Qilin sacrificial temple, we found that it was completely different from the other four spirits. Not only was it well preserved, but it also had restrictions that prevented us from entering. When we were at our wits' end, laughter suddenly came from inside the sacrificial temple. "Who was it?" Lord Daoist Jinghe asked impatiently. Tiange stared at the three Lord Daoists and said, "It was a deification senior." Lord Daoist Miaoi exclaimed softly, "A deification senior was dispatched?" Lord Daoist Xianxia looked calm. "Since it's related to the world situation, how could a deification senior not know? We were negligent before." Lord Daoist Jinghe nodded. "Yes. Deification seniors almost never enter the world, so we ignored their existence." He paused and asked, "Has a deification senior taken over this matter?" "Yes." Tiange sighed and continued, "Our worries were discovered by a deification senior, and they've been doing what we're doing." She didn't hide the fact that the sacrificial temple was built in ancient times and was related to the gamble between the two deities. She just didn't answer the question about what happened later and blamed everything on the deification cultivator. Deification cultivators never entered the world, so the three Lord Daoists only knew they existed but had never seen one. In the tens of thousands of years since Xianqing School was established, some people were lucky enough to witness the appearance of deification cultivators and left some words. In these records, deification cultivators acted mysteriously and were powerful, so the three Lord Daoists didn't doubt them at all. "My great ancestor made it clear that deification cultivators couldn't intervene in this matter, so we were sent back." After Tiange finished, the three Lord Daoists were lost in thought. After a long time, Lord Daoist Xianxia said, "Since there's a deification senior, it's not something we can intervene in. Let's forget about this matter." Lord Daoist Jinghe stroked his beautiful short beard and sighed. "It's a waste of effort." "I'm afraid it won't go to waste, right?" Lord Daoist Miaoi looked at them with a smile. "Since the two of you met a soul formation senior, did you get some kind of lucky chance?" Tiange shrugged and said rather regretfully, "Unfortunately, there aren't any." "You don't have anything?" Dao Lord Wondercraft was slightly surprised. "Entering a treasure trove and leaving empty-handed? That's not like you." Tiange and she glanced at each other. Both of them were smiling bitterly in their hearts. When they found out the truth, they were so shocked that they didn't know what to do. How could they still remember to ask for benefits? The fact that they were able to calm down so quickly and decide to continue cultivating was already a testament to their firm willpower. Lingxi was left behind by that senior Han Quan and hasn't returned yet. Could it have encountered something? Lord Daoist Xianxia began to worry again. "Don't worry, senior brother Xianxia. With the Divine Transformation Realm Senior here, junior brother Lingxi will be fine. Besides, Senior Han Quan said in advance that he'd give them a fated chance. Junior martial brother Lingxi's journey was probably delayed because of this. Lord Daoist Jinyang nodded. I hope so. As he spoke, he looked at Qin Shi and asked with a smile, Shoujing, it's been more than 100 years since you advanced to the middle stage of the nascent soul realm. I've noticed that your cultivation level has improved recently, and there are signs of a breakthrough. When will you enter closed-door meditation to advance to the late stage? Qin Shi looked at Mo Tiange and said, if there are no accidents, I'll enter closed-door meditation soon. That's good. The sect is thriving now, and the situation in the celestial pole is also stable. You don't need to worry about trivial things. Lord Daoist Jinyang thought about it and became happy. If you can advance to the late stage smoothly, you'll definitely shock the world. Advancing to the late stage in just over 300 years old is something that has never happened in the celestial pole's cultivation world. Lord Daoist Jinghe was both gratified and jealous. That's right. With my talent, I only advanced to the nascent soul realm when I was 400 years old. Needless to say, the late stage of the nascent soul realm was 900 years old at that time. He couldn't help but recall when he took Qin Shi away from the prince's mansion. At that time, he only thought that since the descendant of the Qin clan had spiritual roots, he, as his granduncle, should help him a little. Later, seeing that Qin Shi's mind was pure and his comprehension was extremely high, he only thought he could pass on his mantle. Several hundred years passed, and Qin Shi's cultivation level was getting higher and higher, getting closer and closer to his own. Now, it was even possible for Qin Shi to surpass him. The late stage of the nascent soul realm wasn't easy to pass, but his intuition told him that this boy wouldn't be delayed for too long. After thinking about it carefully, Qin Shi's mental state was unhindered, his cultivation level was solid, and he also had top-notch resources, so how could he not pass this hurdle? Back then, he couldn't advance because he lacked fated chances, but after obtaining a few flowerless golden fruits, he was able to cross the threshold of the late stage in one fell swoop. Qin Shi smiled but looked at Mo Tiange. Senior martial brother Jinyang, it's too early to say that. I'm afraid it won't be long before the world really shakes. Lord Daoist Jinyang looked at Mo Tiange. Is Qingwei going to advance again? Mo Tiange pursed her lips and smiled. How can it be that fast? It'll take at least several decades. Several decades isn't fast. Lord Daoist Miaoyi said angrily, are you trying to provoke senior martial sister? Speaking of which, Lord Daoist Miaoyi was also known as a genius. She formed her nascent soul before she was 300 years old, but she was still in the early stage of the nascent soul realm now, so the title of genius was somewhat undeserved. But she was still smiling, so it obviously didn't linger in her heart. Lord Daoist Jinghe said, you're encumbered by your cultivation technique. If it weren't for the fact that your cultivation technique is incomplete and you've spent a lot of effort to fix it, how could it be delayed until now? Now that your cultivation technique is complete and your cultivation level is stable, it won't be long before you make a realm breakthrough. Lord Daoist Miaoyi nodded. Thank you for your kind words, senior martial brother. I hope I can advance in one fell swoop during my next closed-door meditation. Mo Tiange thought of Lord Daoist Xianxia, who was still in closed-door meditation, so she asked, what about senior martial brother Xianxia? Did you gain anything from your closed-door meditation this time? This boy is trying to advance to the middle stage, Lord Daoist Jinghe said with a smile. This time his chances are very high. Lord Daoist Xianxia had formed his nascent soul for more than 200 years. His cultivation progress was similar to Lord Daoist Jinghe's. He always made steady progress. However, he was a genius with a single spiritual root after all. Even if he didn't encounter any heaven-defying fated chances, he could still advance to the middle stage. Shoujing and Qingwei are likely to advance to the late stage. Junior martial brother Huayan is already in the middle stage. Miaoyi and Xianxia are about to advance to the middle stage. Lingxi can't advance to the late stage, but he can advance to the middle stage. In addition, Yufei has just formed his nascent soul. Lord Daoist Jinyang carefully counted and was very happy. Our Xianxia school is so prosperous that our ancestors must be very gratified. Mo Tianga's explanation was finally able to smooth things over. She didn't need to talk about how they were going to look forward to the future. Before long, Lord Daoist Lingxi returned safely. Although he looked gloomy, he was still calm. As soon as he returned to the mountain, he went to visit the Immortal's cave in the extreme abyss. After talking with the two of them, he agreed with their way of handling the situation and told them that Ling Yunhe and the others had returned safely. Hiding the truth was also their joint decision. Before Nie Wuxiang returned to Shaoyang, she also asked him to pass on a message. When you advance to the deification realm, we'll meet again and open the path to heaven. Mo Tiange didn't expect Nie Wuxiang would pass on such a heroic message, so she couldn't help but feel heroic. Alright, we'll meet again on the day we advance to the deification realm. After a round of encouragement, Lord Daoist Lingxi went back to cultivate. He was fated to meet the cold spring. This time, he obtained a huge fated chance, so presumably he would also soar to the sky. A few days later, Jing Xingji came to visit. He still had a cheeky smile on his face and didn't look gloomy at all. His growth experience was more rough than many people's. If he didn't have a tough heart, he wouldn't be able to reach this step, so there was no need to worry about him. As soon as he sat down, he said, "Can you still resist?" She was very calm. "The two of us can resist half of it." Jing Xingji was very gloomy when he was stopped after just one sentence. "I knew I didn't need to worry about you at all." Mo Tiange smiled. Seeing fellow Daoist Jing like this, we're also relieved. Jing Xingji's gloominess was slightly reduced. After thinking for a while, he smiled again. "Forget it, I won't argue with you." He cleared his throat and said, "I came to tell you that we've decided to advance to the deification realm. What about you?" Mo Tiange nodded lightly. "Of course, we won't give up on the path to heaven." Jing Xingji smiled, his face blooming like a peach blossom. After a while, he stopped smiling and said seriously, "Qin Shoujing, I lost to you in the nascent soul formation realm, but not in the deification realm. Let's just wait and see." She smiled. "In a few days, I'll enter closed-door meditation to advance to the late stage." Jing Xingji was stunned and shouted, "What? You're going to advance to the late stage so soon, but I'm still far away. Isn't this?" Jing Xingji soon said goodbye, saying he had to go back to closed-door meditation. He absolutely couldn't lose to Qin Shi too much. Soon afterward, Qin Shi and Mo Tiange entered closed-door meditation together to practice the yin and yang dual cultivation technique. This technique, which combined the art of Sunu, Taiyuan record, pure yang technique, and the art of 3 primordial cycles into one, made incredible progress. In less than 10 years, the two of them came out of closed-door meditation. Qin Shi had successfully advanced to the late stage and became a great cultivator in the late stage of the nascent soul realm. As for Mo Tiange, she benefited even more from it. The day she advanced to the late stage was just around the corner. When Jing Xingji heard this news, he beat his chest and stamped his feet. He then wholeheartedly entered closed-door meditation and never stepped out of Gujin sect. Lingyun also received news that Master Daoist Iron Mask passed away and Master Daoist Yuanmu was injured, so he had no choice but to take over the position of first seat, becoming the first middle-stage nascent soul first seat in the history of Juyin sect. Speaking of first seat, when Qin Shi advanced to the late stage, Lord Daoist Xianyang intended to pass the position to him, but he refused. Others thought he didn't want to take the position because his master was still alive. Only Mo Tiange knew he wholeheartedly wanted to advance to the deification realm, so he didn't want to waste time and occupy the position of first seat. 100 years passed quickly. Kuang Zhu advanced to the nascent soul realm, and the number of nascent soul cultivators in Xianxia school reached double digits. Under Xianxia school's strong support, the demonic beast riot gradually subsided. All the demonic cultivators retreated to the southern forest. The demonic cultivators on the westbound continent were forced to retreat to the west because of the strength of the ghost cultivators. As for the devil path cultivators, they moved to Yunzhong one after another, taking advantage of the chaos in Yunzhong to occupy the territory in the west and continue to recuperate. After 100 years of war, Yunzhong slowly calmed down. Many sects lost their inheritance in the war, and the power of the cultivation forces was reshuffled. Juyan's sect, on the other hand, stood firm. Although its power declined greatly, it firmly occupied the position of the number one sect in Yunzhong. As for Xiaoyang, Nie Wuxiang once sent a letter saying that all the forces in Xiaoyang had been subdued by her. Although it was still a barren land, it had a chance of survival. Only Yang Qingji's whereabouts were uncertain. She only occasionally heard that he passed by, Fairy Feng Ning, the Grand Supreme Elder of Biyun sect, congratulates. Sect head Mu Jinglu of Lingshou sect congratulates. Master Daoist Sunglo of Tiandao sect congratulates. Lord Daoist Mingxia of Zhengfa sect congratulates. Venerable Swordsman Xiao He of Gujin sect congratulates. The main peak of Mount Taikong was decorated with lanterns and streamers. It was even grander than the nascent soul ceremony. The disciples coming and going were full of joy, and the guests who came to congratulate had high cultivation levels. However, among these guests, only a few familiar names could be heard, such as Feng Ning of Biyun sect and Venerable Swordsman Xiao He of Gujin sect. A man stood in front of the statue of the founder of Three Pure Hall on the main peak. He looked like a young man in his 20s. He was tall and had an ordinary appearance. His not-so-handsome brows carried a bit of fierceness and depth, and his gorgeous feather crown and crane cloak made him look very powerful. Fellow Daoist Mo, congratulations on taking over the position of first seat. When Lord Daoist Mingxia of Zhengfa sect saw this person, he immediately cupped his hands with a smile. All cultivators of Xianxia school were called by their Daoist names after they advanced to the core formation realm. This young man was obviously in the late stage of the nascent soul realm, but Master Daoist Mingxia called him fellow Daoist Mo. It was clear that the two of them had a deep friendship and must have known each other well. The young man smiled faintly and returned the greeting. He then cupped his hands towards Venerable Swordsman Xiao He and the others who followed closely behind him. Fellow Daoists, it's my honor to have you all here. Please wait for a moment, fellow Daoists. The first seat's succession ceremony is about to begin. All the cultivators expressed that they didn't need to worry about it. Under the guidance of a Daoist child, they went to the side to wait. Right at that moment, with a sudden clap of thunder, the wind and clouds surged, and countless spiritual lights appeared on the 7 peaks of Mount Taikong. What's going on? The guests who hadn't sat down looked outside one after another. They were either in the core formation realm or the nascent soul realm, so how could they not see that this was a celestial phenomenon? A celestial phenomenon caused by a cultivator's realm advancement. Venerable Swordsman Xiao He looked up and muttered to himself, if it's not the core formation realm, could it be that someone is forming their nascent soul? Thunderclaps, wind and clouds, and spiritual lights indeed looked like the celestial phenomenon of forming one's nascent soul. However, a faint, sweet-sounding sound rang out in the air, sounding like celestial music. Bowl-sized flowers sprinkled down from the sky like the legendary celestial maiden scattering flowers. Whose celestial phenomenon of forming one's nascent soul is so strange? Lord Daoist Wuzhen, who was about to take over the position of first seat, frowned. He followed the flow of spiritual aura and looked towards Clear Spring Peak. Suddenly, he was pleasantly surprised. Could it be? He didn't have time to entertain the guests and immediately turned into a flight light, rushing towards Clear Spring Peak. One flight light after another stopped at Clear Spring Peak. At that moment, the nascent soul Lord Daoists of Xianxia School were all gathered in Deep Abyss Valley. Before long, the stone door of the cave opened, and Sang Yushu, who was already a nascent soul cultivator, walked out. He looked around and cupped his hands at his fellow disciples. Senior and junior martial brothers, please don't be alarmed. This phenomenon is a sign that Master and Master's wife have successfully formed their deification realm. The nascent soul cultivators were stunned by this news. Lord Daoist Shoujing and Lord Daoist Qingwei were the most outstanding geniuses in Xianxia School's history. This was something all Xianxia school disciples knew, and these nascent soul cultivators also knew that 400 years ago, the two Lord Daoists no longer appeared in front of people because they wanted to form their deification realm. However, in the celestial pole, there had been no news of cultivators forming their deification realm in the past 10,000 years, and the two Lord Daoists were too young, so they all thought even if they could form their deification realm, it would be a very, very long time later. They never thought that the two Lord Daoists would achieve their goal in less than 1,000 years. Deification realm. A deification realm cultivator appeared in Xianxia school. This news instantly spread throughout Mount Taikang, and soon, it would also spread throughout the celestial pole. In Shangqing Palace, the two most senior Lord Daoists in Xianxia school sat opposite each other on opposite sides of the chessboard. One of them was 1,800 years old, and the other 1,600 years old. Both of them were already old. If they hadn't taken longevity pills that could increase their lifespan by 500 years, they would have passed away already. Right now, their backs were still straight, and their temperaments were still sage-like. Only the tiredness between their brows vaguely revealed their age. Deification realm. These two little guys finally formed their deification realm. Lord Daoist Jinghe smiled and placed a chess piece. Yes, a deification realm cultivator finally appeared in Xianxia school. Lord Daoist Jinyang was very calm. He didn't feel anxious at all because his juniors had already formed their deification realm while he was still stuck in the nascent soul realm. Shouldn't the two of us also work hard? Lord Daoist Jinghe said, "We don't have much longer to live." Haven't we been working hard? Lord Daoist Jinyang stroked his beard with a smile. It's just that those two people walked faster than us. Lord Daoist Jinghe nodded lightly with a smile on his face. They've been in closed-door meditation on Demonic Mountain for 200 years and finally found the key to forming their deification realm from the immortal aura in Immortal's ruins. Now that you've handed over the position of head to them, do you want us to also give it a try? Lord Daoist Jinyang glanced at him with a smile and scolded him with a smile. They went together because they're doing dual cultivation. What's the point of us two old guys going together? I don't have any special hobbies. Go. Lord Daoist Jinghe rolled his eyes. I like to look at beautiful women. I'm not interested in looking at an old man like you. Several days later, Gujian Sect's venerable swordsman Jing Xingji, Yunzhong Jiuyan Sect's head Grand Supreme Elder Ling Yunhe, Lord of Shaoyang Sect Nie Wushang, and Yang Qingji, who wandered the world without a fixed place, all received a message. We've formed our deification realm. When will we meet again? End of book. You're tuning in to the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.